A racist police officer assaulted Mike Tyson with a baton, right in the bustling Central Park. This outrageous act ignited a chain of unexpected events. What led a legend like Mike Tyson to become a target of blatant discrimination? Will justice be served in the heart of New York's iconic park? This story will make you reflect on courage, injustice, and invaluable lessons. Before we delve into the story, please let us know where you're watching from. Share your city or country in the comments and don't forget to subscribe. Tomorrow we'll bring you another inspiring story, created just for you. Now, let's explore this dramatic development and its surprising conclusion. On a beautiful day in Central Park, the sun shone brightly on the picturesque scenery with green grass and blue skies. Families enjoyed their day off, children played with boundless energy, and joggers strode rhythmically along the trails. Amidst the cheerful scene, Mike Tyson, the boxing legend, sat quietly on a bench, wearing a hoodie and jeans. He exuded calmness as he offered a handful of birdseed to the gathering pigeons. His eyes softened as a young boy, drawn by the sight, ran towards the bench. The boy, his face beaming with excitement, slowly approached the bench, his feet barely touching the ground as he bounced with anticipation. His question burst out like a torrent of youthful energy, as if he could hardly believe his eyes. Are you Mike Tyson?" Tyson maintained his smile, turning to look at the boy, his eyes reflecting a warmth that contrasted with his reputation in the ring. "That's right, kid," he replied, his voice deep and warm. Mike Tyson's shoulders shook with a chuckle as he recognized the boy's boundless enthusiasm. "Want an autograph?" he asked, his eyes twinkling. The boy nodded vigorously, his face radiant with a mixture of awe and joy. Tyson took a notebook from the boy, his fingers nimbly holding the pen. A few quick strokes and his signature appeared on the page like a work of art. As the boy beamed with pride, his mother called him back, her gratitude towards Tyson evident in her voice. Officer Brody, whose daily patrol was a ritual of frowns and glares, walked through the park with an air of demanding respect, or at least fear. His closely cropped hair and sunglasses concealed his sharp eyes, observing the area with a stern gaze. As he rounded a corner, Officer Brody's eyes landed on the famous boxer feeding pigeons, the birds forming a serene halo around Tyson. Brody's lips curled into a contemptuous smirk, his eyes narrowing with calculation. "Excellent," he muttered to himself, his expression hardening with each step. As Officer Brody approached, his words became laced with bitterness and judgment. "Another loiterer," he thought with an accusatory tone, "surely up to no good. Wouldn't be surprised if he starts causing trouble." His lips curled into a smug smile at the thought of the satisfaction of dismissing Mike Tyson, the power of his badge giving him a sense of inflated authority. Officer Brody, who considered himself the park's self-appointed guardian, approached Mike Tyson. His body language exuded a palpable air of intimidation. He stood erect, his shoulders squared and his chin jutted out like a blade. "Hey," Brody barked, his tone sharp as a whip. "You can't just sit here all day. Move along." Startled by Brody's aggressive approach, the pigeons scattered, taking flight in all directions. However, Mike Tyson remained unfazed, his expression unreadable with a hint of amusement flickering in his voice. Mike Tyson responded to Officer Brody with a calm yet firm tone. "I'm just feeding the pigeons, officer. Is that a crime?" His calm demeanor stood in stark contrast to the officer's confrontational approach, the interaction taking on the air of a verbal chess match. Brody's eyes narrowed at Mike's response, his hand instinctively reaching for the butt of his holstered gun, as if preparing for a confrontation. "Maybe not," he conceded, his voice laced with poorly veiled disdain, "but it ain't exactly proper either." Officer Brody's irritation flared at Mike Tyson's nonchalant attitude, his contempt evident as he retorted with a sneer. "Don't get smart with me," he spat, his words sharp as shattered glass. "I told you to move along." The officer's aggression surged like a tide, his hand moving closer to his holster, the implicit threat clear. Mike remained unmoved, meeting the officer's gaze with a steady look, his body language as solid as granite. "I'm not going anywhere," he replied, each word slow and deliberate. The confrontation between Mike Tyson and Officer Brody seemed to have drawn attention as a small crowd began to gather, their whispers and murmurs adding to the tense atmosphere. In contrast to the officer's seething anger, Mike Tyson remained composed, sitting on the bench as if he were simply engaged in a casual conversation, his calm and unwavering voice reflecting a defiant stance. "I'm not bothering anybody," he reiterated calmly. "I think you've got me mistaken. I'm just enjoying the park like everyone else." Brody, his simmering frustration morphing into a blaze of anger, leaned forward, his face inches from Mike Tyson's, the veins in his neck throbbing as he glared at Mike, his eyes burning with a ferocity that could melt steel. "I don't care who you think you are," he snarled, his voice a low growl of animosity. "Get up," he bellowed, his hot breath hitting Mike's face. The crowd gasped at the spectacle, a mixture of fear and awe permeating their collective reaction. Brody's patience snapped like a dry twig, his baton an angry extension of his arm as he swung it. The sound of the impact echoed through the crowd like a clap of thunder, the baton striking Mike Tyson's shoulder sending waves of shock and disbelief through the park. Mike, taken aback by the sudden assault, let out a grunt of pain, his body tensing as if preparing for a follow-up blow. The crowd's reaction was immediate and visceral, a chorus of gasps, and protests erupting around the scene like a dormant volcano erupting. Mike Tyson rose from the bench, his towering height and imposing physique dwarfing Officer Brody's frame. His movements were slow, deliberate, each motion radiating a simmering intensity despite the sharp pain in his shoulder. Mike's face remained unreadable, his eyes a fathomless abyss of still water. He stared intently at Brody. The silence between them held an unspoken challenge, the crowd's murmurs subsiding as all eyes focused on the epic confrontation unfolding before them. Mike Tyson, his voice a deliberate whisper carrying the weight of mountains, spoke to Officer Brody. "You didn't have to do that." His words carried an undercurrent of suppressed rage. Brody, momentarily taken aback by Mike's restraint, stammered, You should have listened." He replied, the bravado in his tone undermined by a flicker of fear. The tension in the air thickened, the crowd now silent as they anticipated what would happen next. Brody, a smug grin masking his growing apprehension, took another step towards Mike Tyson, his hand still gripping the baton tightly. "What are you going to do?" he taunted, his voice now laced with bravado and thinly veiled panic, his eyes darting to his baton, weighing his options, but Mike Tyson's towering presence seemed to drain his courage. Mike remained unfazed by Brody's threats, standing his ground, his stance unwavering. Mike Tyson, moving with the slow, deliberate pace of a stalking tiger, moved even closer to Officer Brody, his presence a solid wall of unyielding authority. "I could show you," he growled, his words carrying the weight of an unspoken promise. "But first you're going to apologize to these people for what you just did." The crowd, captivated by Mike's resolve, edged closer, their eyes wide with anticipation as they witnessed the unfolding drama. Brody, his facade of smugness cracking under the pressure, took a hesitant step back. Officer Brody, with a forced laugh attempting to regain his composure, held his ground, his defiance momentarily masking his fear. "Apologize?" he spat, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Apologize to you?" He shook his head. "No way, Tyson. Not a chance." The crowd sensed the powder keg was on the verge of exploding, watching with bated breath, every word, every gesture a potential spark to ignite the flame. Mike Tyson, his patience worn thin, clenched his jaw, a primal rage simmering beneath his calm exterior. Brody, emboldened by his own brash words, lunged forward, his baton a blur of violent intent. But Mike Tyson, with reflexes honed to razor-sharp precision, intercepted the blow, his hand clamping down on the baton like an iron vice. The crowd, now a collective gasp of awe and shock, watched as he effortlessly wrested the weapon from Brody's grasp. A wave of cheers and gasps erupted from the onlookers. Brody, his eyes wide with disbelief, stumbled back, his face etched with dawning horror as he realized the gravity of his miscalculation. Mike Tyson, his voice a deadly whisper, looked down at Officer Brody, his face a mask of implacable retribution. "You picked the wrong guy today," he growled, and the menace in his voice was as clear as the anger in his eyes. "You picked the wrong guy in the wrong city on the wrong day, and now you're going to pay." Brody's bravado evaporated like morning mist. He took another step back, his feet betraying his fear despite his attempts to conceal it. Officer Brody, desperation now evident, threw a wild, untrained punch. But Mike Tyson, with reflexes honed over years in the ring, evaded the blow with the fluidity of a shark in water. He retaliated with a series of precise, expertly executed strikes, each landing with brutal accuracy. Brody, caught off guard and overwhelmed, staggered back, his defenses crumbling under Mike's relentless assault like a drowning man grasping at straws. Brody flailed his arms wildly, but in vain, as Mike Tyson's dazzling display of martial arts forced Brody to his knees. The crowd, energized by the spectacle, erupted in a cacophony of cheers, a symphony of roars echoing through the park. In a scene reminiscent of a medieval joust, onlookers pulled out their phones, their cameras capturing the momentous clash like flies descending on a feast. The Rock, now simply Dwayne, emerged from the crowd, clapping along with the other onlookers, his eyes gleaming with admiration, fixed on Mike, a silent acknowledgement of the boxer's skill. Mike Tyson, a portrait of grace under pressure, allowed Brody to stagger back to his feet. Despite his victory, his face remained impassive, his eyes a deep gaze into his own self-control. "I could have hurt you," he conceded, his voice measured and calm, "but that's not who I am. I'm not like you." The crowd was silenced by the display of restraint, holding their breath, captivated by Mike's words. Officer Brody, his bravado reduced to tatters, reeled under the weight of Mike Tyson's words, the reality of his defeat finally sinking in, his eyes darting around the crowd searching for an escape, but finding only the unwavering gazes of the witnesses. He saw in the faces of the people he had sworn to protect the realization that his actions had forever tarnished the power of his badge. His expression contorted into a mask of shame, his shoulders slumping like a broken puppet. Mike Tyson, his voice like a hammer striking the anvil of Brody's pride, gestured towards the surrounding crowd. "These people," he declared, his words resonating with the weight of justice, "saw what you did. They saw you, a representative of the law, assault an unarmed citizen, and they saw me defend myself." The crowd, emboldened by Mike's words, roared in agreement, their voices a resounding chorus of condemnation. Brody, his face now flushed with shame, hung his head in defeat. The crowd parted like a wave, clearing a path for the imposing figure of a senior officer, his stern expression signaling his displeasure long before he uttered a word. "Brody," the officer bellowed, his voice echoing over the murmurs of the crowd. "What's going on here?" he demanded, his eyes narrowing into accusatory slits as they swept across the scene. Brody, his shoulders slumping with embarrassment, opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out, his tongue paralyzed by fear. The crowd, emboldened by Mike Tyson's courage, surged forward, their voices a chorus of righteous indignation. "He attacked him," one person yelled. "He started it," another echoed. The senior officer, his face darkening with each passing moment, listened with steely resolve, his ears a conduit for the outrage of the people he had sworn to protect. Brody, now fully aware of his precarious position, swallowed hard, his eyes darting between Mike, the senior officer, and the crowd, his cowardice laid bare for all to see. The senior officer, his eyes settling on the familiar features of Mike Tyson, straightened, his face, while still stern, softening into a look of genuine regret. "Mr. Tyson," he said, his tone a stark contrast to Brody's earlier hostility, "I sincerely apologize for this incident. I assure you that this will be handled swiftly and fairly." The crowd, relieved to see their hero treated with the respect he deserved, let out a collective sigh of approval, their murmurs a gentle wave of encouragement. Mike Tyson, his stoic demeanor returning, gave the senior officer a curt nod of acknowledgement, his voice regaining its earlier composure, laced with a hint of resolve. "You're right," he concurred, his words striking at the heart of Brody's misconduct. "Men like him don't deserve to wear the badge. They give the whole force a bad name." The crowd, galvanized by Mike's denunciation, responded with another wave of agreement. Brody, standing like a statue, could do nothing but look down at the ground, his humiliation complete. Brody, his defeat evident, opened his mouth to retort, but the senior officer silenced him with a stern look, his voice dripping with disdain cutting through the air with the finality of a guillotine. "You're finished, Brody," he declared, each word a hammer blow to Brody's career, badge and gun. The onlookers, now with justice in their sights, watched with grim satisfaction as Brody reluctantly removed his badge and gun, his hands trembling with shame and disappointment as Brody slunk away, escorted by the senior officer like a disgraced gladiator leaving the arena. The crowd erupted in a cacophony of cheers and applause, the noise like a tidal wave crashing against Mike Tyson's stoic figure. Amidst the cheers, a young boy, inspired by Mike's courage, approached the boxer, his face beaming with admiration. "You're a real hero, Mr. Tyson," he said, his voice a mixture of awe and gratitude. Mike Tyson, with a warm and genuine smile, crouched down to the boy's level, their eyes meeting in a moment of profound connection. "Real heroes," he said, his voice imbued with the wisdom of experience, "are the ones who stand up for what's right. Doesn't matter how big or small you are or what people think of you, always remember that." The boy, his face alight with wonder and pride, nodded vigorously, his eyes shining with newfound resolve. As the onlookers dispersed, their tales of Mike Tyson's bravery poised to spread through the city like wildfire. The boxer returned to his bench, taking a moment to bask in the serenity of the urban landscape. The pigeons, like old friends, returned to Mike's side, their cooing and flapping a gentle symphony of companionship. Mike leaned back on the bench, observing the park with a sense of quiet satisfaction as the camera panned out, showing the tranquility of the park in stark contrast to the chaos that had transpired just moments before. The narrator's voice gently concluded the scene. On this day in Central Park, a single moment altered the lives of many. For Mike Tyson, it was a reminder of the power of standing up for what's right. For the young boy, it was a lesson in courage. And for Eleanor, it was a testament to compassion. Ultimately, we all need heroes, and sometimes they can be found in the most unexpected places. The story of Mike Tyson in Central Park has shown us the power of courage when standing up against injustice. What do you think of Mike's actions? If you witnessed a similar event, how would you act? Have you ever faced difficult situations that required courage to defend what is right? Please share your thoughts and experiences in the comments. Your sincere sharing can inspire and motivate many people. This story is also a reminder of the importance of respect, especially for those who enforce the law. It also shows that no matter who you are, you need to be responsible for your actions. If you find this story meaningful and want to spread the message of courage, respect, and justice, don't hesitate to share it with your friends and family. Thank you for watching and supporting our channel. Let's build a fairer and better society together, starting with the smallest actions. Have a good day. Thank you for supporting the channel. Please like, share, and subscribe to receive the latest updates. The stories are collected from various sources and do not represent any individual or organization. They are shared for the purpose of spreading human values in life and have been rewritten with the support of AI. If there are any errors, please kindly forgive them. Wishing you all the best in life.